The next feature we're going to look at is the budgets and forecasting tools. In QuickBooks, you'll find the budgets and forecasting tools underneath Company and under Planning and Budgeting. Now in Pro, you'll only have budgets, but in Premier and Enterprise, you will have budgets and forecast. We're going to click on Set Up Budgets. And right now I do have a budget in here. It's not a detailed budget, but it is a budget for 2011. I'm going to go over the overview and then we'll create a new budget for the current year. First of all, I don't have a lot of customers that do use this tool. Perhaps they don't know about it, but it is in here. And customers that I do have using it typically are nonprofits that do use budgets, and they do use this. So budgets, of course, should be done in advance. Before you start your fiscal year, you should have a budget implemented. And in your budget, you should know on a monthly basis what your income is, what your overall expenses are going to be by account. In here, we have just some generic things thrown in here. I have $10,000 for every month. Now, let's just say I have my cost of goods sold. Maybe my cost of goods sold are going to be $50,000 a month for most months. I could type in $50,000. I can click on Copy Across. Yet if there's a couple months where I know it's going to be maybe a little bit less or a little bit more, oops, a little bit less, a little bit more, I can go ahead and adjust it within that specific month. But the Copy Across feature saves me a little bit of time keying it in. I'm going to click on Save and then click on OK. I'm going to go back into that to create a new budget. We're going to go back under Planning and Budgeting, click on Set Up Budgets, and I'm going to create a new one to show you the different options that you have. Let's choose 2018 since that's the year that this sample file was created in. And we're going to do a profit and loss budget. I don't think I've ever seen somebody do a balance sheet budget, but you might have that need. We'll click on Next. And here's criteria that you can choose. No additional criteria, specifically does it by month, which is what we just did. I'm going to choose, the class. Now you could choose customer job. I have had one in over 2,400 customers that actually did a customer by job. It's very difficult to track that way, but by all means, if you have a huge project and you want to do a budget by job in here, you can do that. Otherwise, you would use estimates to do your job costing budgeting. But in class is usually something that we can do. And that's, again, taking a different budget by division. We'll click on Next. We're going to do a budget from scratch. I have seen people use the budget from prior or previous year's actual data, but it will bring in any kind of old accounts that you were not using. It'll bring in dollar amounts that maybe don't make sense. You can always try it, and then you can create a new budget if it doesn't work out quite right for you. We're going to do a budget from scratch, and then click on Finish. You'll see that versus the prior budget that we looked at, which I think is up here, you'll see that it doesn't have a class, but this one does. This 2018 does have a class. You'll want to choose the class that you're going to be putting the budget in for, keeping in mind that the sum of all of these classes will be your ultimate one budget. The construction income, let's say it's $50,000 for new construction a month. We'll copy that across, and I'm just going to put in a couple other things, maybe job labor. Oops, let me start in January. Maybe it's going to be $2,500. And we'll copy that across. So just to give you an idea of a couple of things that you want to put in. We'll click on Save, and then click on OK, and that'll close it out. Now, forecast. If you click on Company and go back to Planning and Budgeting, what is a forecast? Well, a forecast looks exactly the same as a budget. We're going to do it the exact same way, from scratch. You would put in the replication of the budget. The difference is, let me just put in the 50,000, and I'll do one row in here as an example. Let's say your budget was $50,000 in this year, and after the first month, you say, well, gosh, my first month of that year was only $40,000, so I need to go in here and completely fill in what my actuals were for January. So January's income was $40,000, and I'm going to click on OK. What'll happen is in my reporting, I'll be able to see where I might run into a problem based on what my budget was. My budget showed what I was supposed to have, and my forecast tells me that on an ongoing basis, if I stay on budget for the remaining of the months for my year, and I update my actuals, am I going to be okay at the end of the year? Or where can I make adjustments where can I forecast changes, and where can I put those changes, maybe increase revenue or decrease expenses in order for me to stay on budget? Now under reports, you can pull the budgets and forecast. You can do a budget overview. So the budget overview, you choose which budget you're going to pull from. So we'll pull from this 2018. And then we'll do it by month, but you can also do it by class. So we'll do it by month this time, but you can run it by class because we designated that we could do it by class, and we've put data in by class. We'll click on Finish, and you can see every month, this is just your overview. Over on the right-hand side, this total should be your total for the entire year. Now, if we pull well, it should have been, I didn't choose it to the end of this year, but it should have been this year. If we go back down to budgets and forecasts, there's a budget versus actual report. We'll keep this current year, and we'll do it by month and Finish. So now you'll be able to see, and I think we'll have more of a value if we go over to December, where was what we had most of our data in. It's pulling in this current month. So it'll pull in the budget broke down by the number of days. So you'll see that the budget was really $50,000, I believe, but if it took it down to the 15th of the month, it actually breaks it down by day. Where if we change this to the end of the month, you'll see it will refresh it to the full month. So keep that in mind when you're running these reports, that it does do that if it's done by a daily basis. Last report, under reports, your budget and forecast. You have your forecast versus actual. We don't probably have a lot of significant data in here, but let's go down to December. Actually, let's just pull a December. 1/8, I forgot that was in the next year, through 12/31/18. And we'll refresh that. You can see that our forecast was 50, we've done 37, so now we're short $13,000. These are great tools for you to consider using, for sure. And that concludes budgets and forecasts.